Hello, beautiful artisans on YouTube. I hope you're having a beautiful day. We are already on Wednesday. We have sun galore in Vermont here. We just had a snowstorm the last few days, but as the snow was coming down, it was kind of melting. So it wasn't what you would know snowstorms to be in Vermont. We haven't had those snowstorms for about 20 years, I'd say. But anyway, I wanted to talk with you a little bit today about frogging in crochet. What is frogging? And what the Japanese farmers used to do to get thread. And the reason I'm going over some of this today is first, I had a TikToker ask me a question about unraveling the yarn and using it again, and is it really worth doing that? And also, I just want to give you an idea of how very deep you can go with recycling. Um, how what do I want to say? The tasks can be very so obscure that you wouldn't even think it could be done, right? So, but anyway, so with frogging, what is frogging? In crochet, crocheters know it to be when they rip out their project and they use the yarn either to redo their stitches or do a different stitch, or they rip out a project and do it to do a different project. They use the crochet for a different project. Um, Now, is it worth doing this? Oh, the other thing I wanted to tell you, what does frogging mean, like literally? So I always thought it meant like the F and the R and O and G and whatnot. All the letters meant something, but they don't. There's no acronym here. What it is, it comes from um, when you rip out your stitches. You're saying rip it, and so it was similar to ribbit. Frog says ribbit. So I got the title frogging. So you can't make this stuff up. But is it worth it? I'd say if you're starting a project and you make a mistake, definitely you want to rip it out as soon as you see the mistake, kind of go back, especially, if it's usually a couple of rounds by the time you realize, oh my gosh, it's not looking the way it's supposed to. And so rip it out and go back. Now, um, some people do this extensively, and I don't know if it's therapeutic for them or whatnot. Like let's say they've got the blanket just about made and they're doing let's say they're doing double crochet and they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't do double crochet over here. Ooh, I would not rip it out. Not, not unless it's grotesquely obscured your pattern. Because maybe, at that point you're not going to notice. Maybe there's a way you can add another stitch. But in that kind of a case, I wouldn't say it's worth taking apart the entire project. Now, is it worth keeping some of these projects? And let's say you're the yarn, let's say you spent a little bit on the yarn, it's mohair, cashmere, it's silk, it's some nice yarn. And you did this project, you haven't sold it at a fair, and you're thinking along the line here, I want to make a different project. So rip it out. Now, ripping it out once, in my opinion, is not going to hurt the yarn. And of course, you need to be really, really careful because with crochet, if you rip it, towards the base, or depending on what kind of stitches you're using, it could knot up on you. So you want to be really careful. But yes, I would say if it's expensive yarn and you want to make another project, it's not going to hurt it to rip it out. Now, some people notoriously rip out their projects, and I say in that you risk the yarn losing its substance, its fullness, its vibrancy in that way. Only because every time it's ripped out, some fibers are going to go with it. So that's a given. And so you may notice your thread getting a little thinner. You could notice that after you rip it out once, depending on the yarn that you're using. But I would say, for short, quick fixes, rip it back, rip it out, and correct your mistake. And if you're going to do another project, to do it notoriously and just do it to do it a lot, I wouldn't do it. Um, I wouldn't get in the habit of doing it, let's say. Now, there may be other viewpoints on there. I would love to hear from you if there are. Now, so that's the crochet. And with thread, okay, you notice some fraying here going on. So these threads, this is more denim. I don't think it has any stretch in it. Nowadays, you really got to check your denim because it has, the elastic in it. But this is what one of the threads look like. And way back a couple hundred years ago, easily in Japan, the Japanese farmers would de-thread. They would take thread out of existing pieces of fabric that they weren't going to use for mending. They would take the thread and they would use the thread to do some sashiko stitching, to do mending. And that may sound odd. It's like, well, why are they taking the thread out of a piece they could use for mending? But they literally were that poor. They needed thread to actually do the mending. So they would take it out of the fabric pieces. Now, do people do that today? There are artisans, there are people out there doing that today. And they are actually selling recycled thread. And if you Google, you will find some people out there selling recycled thread. Thread they literally took out of other pieces of fabrics, or they took the fabric and maybe they cut it, maybe they have a certain machine, maybe they processed it somehow. But but that's the manual way. There are some doing it that way too. So even today. So, with the reason I wanted to bring that up also is because today, we're living in an era where resources are diminishing. Whether things are changing for whatever reason they're changing, the fact is the resources are diminishing. So, because of that, we need, I believe anyway, as a people, to find ways to utilize what we have to recycle it. And there's so many intricate ways that you can recycle things, not just fabric. You can recycle, iron, wire, buttons, wood, metal, all kinds of things, glass, plastic. So, and the research is at our fingertips on Google. We can find, we can research and find people have written books on certain ways to recycle and different ways to recycle things. And so, if you're starting a business, I really believe sustainable is our future, is the way to go, and use what's already there. I mean, how more economical possibly that, right? So, anyway, I wanted to share that with you today. And my next video up on YouTube, either Thursday or Friday of this week. So the next one up is going to be our fabric journals. So anyway, you have a beautiful day.